Welcome to the deep dive, where we take the sources, the articles, the research, the deep cuts, and distill them into essential knowledge.
Today we're doing something that really goes against every modern instinct we have.
We are intentionally slowing down. We're looking for, I guess, a kind of quiet power in our images.
That's right. Our deep dive today is all about the discipline of minimalist photography. And our guide is, well, one of the true masters, Michael Kenna.
He's like the poet of stillness. His work is basically a roadmap for how to create with intention.
And when you look at his work, the lone pier, that single tree, it feels so simple.
Almost effortless, but that's the trick, isn't it?
It is. The core lesson here, and Kenna lived by this, is that the power of a photo isn't always in what it shows.
It's in what it leaves out
Yeah,
dramatically.
exactly. And this is so important for you, the listener, who probably takes 90% of your photos on the phone in your pocket.
Right, we're just so overloaded with information in life and in the frame.
So our goal is to take these huge artistic principles that Kenna mastered over decades and show you how to apply them, how to distill a busy scene down to its essential core
But with the camera you already have.
with the camera you already have.
It's a huge challenge, though. When you've got unlimited storage, the instinct is just to snap everything.
Document it all. We have to fight that urge to clutter the frame and instead learn to create with a really disciplined purpose.
Kenna once said his work was about trying to get to the core, the essence.
And that phrase right there, that's our foundation for today.
So let's start with that philosophy, with the idea of subtraction.
When we say subtraction, I think most people immediately think of, cropping an image later. But for Kenna, it was a mindset. It was about waiting.
Absolutely. Minimalism isn't about just stripping everything away until it's blank. It's about distilling a scene until only the emotional parts are left.
He wasn't taking spontaneous shots. No, not at all. He got that stillness through, well, sheer patience. He'd wait for hours or even come back days later for the right conditions.
Like waiting for fog to roll in or for the light to soften.
Exactly. And that patience delivers images that they make you think. They invite contemplation.
When you see that single tree against a field of snow or a lone pier stretching into the mist, the image doesn't tell you the whole story.
It just gives you a suggestion.
Yeah.
And that restraint that forces you, the viewer, to engage, to fill in the blanks yourself.
We see that so clearly in his Pine Trees, Study 4, Kokyu, Honshu, Japan.
No, it's a masterclass in this. It looks
What?
so simple, but it's just brilliant distillation. You've got these dark tree trunks and branches against this perfect white canvas of snow.
And what makes it work is that there are zero distractions. The whole thing is built on that stark contrast, the black against the white.
And the repetition of the vertical trunks. The whole image feels silent because of the snow. If he'd included, say, a footprint or a power line.
The whole feeling would just be gone. It would dissolve.
That's the power of finding the essence. Which brings us to the first actionable takeaway for you. We call it simplicity and focus.
Okay, so what do you do?
You need to find one subject, just one. A tree, a lamppost, a corner of a building, anything. And then you physically move yourself so the background is as simple as it can possibly be.
But isn't that really hard, especially in a city? How do you find a blank canvas?
You use the huge, simple things that are always there. The sky, a big blank concrete wall, even a patch of open asphalt.
So you're using intentionality right there in the frame.
Yes, and you need to use your phone's grid lines to help you. Use them to make sure those little distracting things, a piece of trash, a brightly colored car, are pushed right out of the edges of your shot.
So we're not just taking a picture of a tree, we're creating a picture of a single tree against nothing.
Exactly. That changes everything. It's a discipline that starts the second you look through the lens.
Okay, that sets us up perfectly for composition. In most photography tutorials, you're taught to fill the frame, find interest everywhere.
Right. But minimalists like Kenna, they work in the complete opposite direction. They prioritize negative space.
And negative space is the game changer here.
It really is. It's the context, the sky, the water, the mist. It's not empty space. It's the silence between the notes that gives music its power.
I think the hardest part for people is that your brain just wants to crop out the empty bits. It sees them as wasted space. How do you fight that?
You have to start seeing negative space as an element of tension and balance. It's a visual breathing room. Think about his photo. Giza pyramids, study 5.
Oh, yeah, a magnificent
The
one.
pyramids are these solid geometric shapes,
Uh,
but they're balanced by that huge empty sky above them and the endless sand all around them.
that vastness is what makes them feel so monumental. So the negative space is actually creating the mood of quiet grandeur.
It's all about harmony. Harmony between the seen and the unseen. And Kenna often uses the rule of thirds for exactly this reason. He'll place the subject off-center.
Which creates this deliberate visual pull.
Yeah, where the vast negative space is actively interacting with that lone subject.
So, for your practice at home, you could try an exercise we're calling emptiness as subject.
Right. Find a single anchor point, a street light, a bench, and position yourself so most of the background is empty. Then just play with it. Move that subject to the corner or the edge using your grid lines.
And just notice how that empty space changes the feeling, the emotional weight.
And if space is the canvas, then line and shake, well, those are the brushstrokes.
Mm.
Kenna trains us to see form, not just objects.
This is that idea of unnaming what you see.
Exactly. You strip away the literal identity. It's not a fence anymore. It's a series of parallel lines. It's not a road. It's a curve.
Kenna himself said he was interested in the shapes of things, the way light interacts with the world.
And you see that in his photo, Stone Steps, Huangshan, Anhui, China. It shows steps disappearing into mist.
But the real subject isn't the steps.
No, it's the rhythm. It's that repeated diagonally cutting across the frame, leading your eye until the line is just swallowed by the fog.
That abstraction is so key. So for you, the listener, you can train your eye by using your phone screen as a frame for geometry.
Look for natural lines, fences, shadows, roads, and physically tilt your phone until that line feels balanced and isolated.
And once you start seeing in shapes and lines, your photos stop being just snapshots.
They become these little visual puzzles.
It's a beautiful shift from, documentation to poetry. And speaking of poetry, let's get into the technical side, the choices that create his atmosphere. Monochrome, time, and fog.
Okay, first, black and white. This is not just a filter you slap on at the end. It's a fundamental discipline.
Why? What does it do?
When you take away color, everything else, shape, texture, and especially tone, gets louder. It demands more attention.
So Kenna chose monochrome to force the viewer to focus only on structure and mood.
Right, without the emotional distraction of color. And he doesn't just desaturate, he sculpts the tone.
That's such a crucial distinction, because a bad black and white conversion just looks flat and gray.
A poor one loses all the middle tones, yeah. But a great one, like Kenna's, carefully defines the relationship between the shadows and the light. In his work, whites are like breathing rooms, and the deep blacks are visual anchors.
So for phone users, composition is still number one. But what's the technical tip?
Technically, you want to save as much tonal information as possible. So if your phone can, shoot in RAW. And here's the real pro tip. For reflective scenes like water or snow, tap to focus on your subject, and then immediately drag the exposure slider down just a little bit.
You're intentionally underexposing it.
Yes, because that prevents the bright highlights from getting blown out. It saves that subtle texture in the snow or on the water, which is everything for good monochrome.
That detail is often what separates a good shot from a great one. Okay, the second part of his atmosphere, long exposure. This is what makes him the poet of stillness.
It is. Long exposure records duration. It distills time. By stretching a moment from a fraction of a second to many seconds, it just simplifies chaos.
Choppy water becomes smooth, like velvet.
Exactly. And clouds become these soft, streaking brushstrokes. The whole scene feels eternal, stripped of all that everyday restlessness.
And what's amazing is that modern phones actually give us pretty good access to this effect.
They do. If you have an iPhone, look for the live photo feature. You can convert that to a long exposure. On Android, you might have a night sight or motion mode.
And this is but there's a non-negotiable part of this.
Stabilization? You have to stabilize the phone. Any movement, even a tiny hand tremor, will ruin it. You need a tripod or a truly rock-solid surface.
No shortcuts. A bench, a rock, a fence post.
And you can practice at dawn or dusk when it's naturally easier to get a long exposure. Or, if you're serious, you can get a little clip-on ND filter for your phone.
Find a subject where something is still and something is moving, like a pier in the sea. The pier stays sharp, the water blurs to silk.
Perfect.
Okay, on to the ultimate simplifier, atmosphere. The horizon and fog are like Kenna's constant collaborators.
For sure. The horizon is more than a line. It's an anchor. It's a storytelling tool. A centered horizon feels calm. A low one emphasizes a vast sky. A high one grounds the scene.
And Kenna often blurs that line with mist or long exposure, making it just a subtle suggestion.
Right, a soft shift in tone that makes you search for the boundary, which leads us directly to fog. Fog is a gift to a minimalist photographer.
It simplifies everything. It reduces clutter, softens hard edges, pushes the world into abstraction.
It creates mystery because it withholds information. A tree in the sun is just a tree. That same tree disappearing into fog is a moment of deep mystery.
And practically, for phone shooting, fog gives you this beautiful, even diffused light, no harsh shadows.
Yep. And the key, again, is exposure control. Don't let the mist get blown out to pure white. Tap to focus on a mid-tone like a nearby tree trunk and drag that exposure down a touch.
So you keep the texture in the mist.
And it's the perfect time to embrace silhouettes. Subjects just become these stark, beautiful outlines.
So we've found our essence. We've used negative space. We've captured stillness. But the work isn't done. We have to talk about restraint in editing.
This is so important. If you're making a minimalist image, editing should reveal what's already strong. It should not impose something new.
So no heavy HDR effects, no crazy filters.
They will completely destroy that delicate balance you work so hard to capture. You're aiming for quiet, almost invisible refinement.
So the principles are pretty simple. First, crop aggressively for clarity. Isolate that subject, re-emphasize the negative space.
Second, use subtle curves or levels to control your tones. Enhance them, but don't break that calm atmosphere.
And third?
Third, and this is crucial for the phone editor, be surgical. Be aggressive in removing tiny distractions. A stray bright leaf, a piece of litter. Use your phone's healing or clone tools. Those little bright spots are the enemy of quiet focus.
And I think the biggest reminder here is do not fix the emptiness. Protect it.
Yes, that vast gray sky is often the most powerful part of the photo. Respect it.
Finally, to really get what Kenna was doing, you have to move beyond just one shot.
The most powerful minimalism is a series, a collection that feels unified. It reads like chapters of a quiet story.
Which requires a longer-term strategy. You have to define a story, maybe it's lonely objects in winter, and maintain a single, unified voice through the whole set.
Kenna was famous for going back to the same places over and over, waiting for that one specific condition, that fog, that light.
You should do that too. Return to a familiar, ordinary subject near you. The same park bench, the same fence line, and just wait.
Waiting is the hardest part. You wait for the one condition that finally simplifies the scene, that reveals its essential quiet nature.
And then when you curate the series, you make sure all the images speak with one voice, not as a bunch of isolated snapshots.
And that's the whole journey. We started with subtraction, we moved to space and line, used time and tone, and we're finishing with restraint.
It all comes down to the idea that reduction isn't emptying. It's clarifying.
That is the core lesson.
So we've learned that minimalist photography is really an act of distillation, of intentional restraint. You know now how to see shapes, prioritize emptiness, and use tools like long exposure and fog to create a mood.
And the quiet power you're looking for, it comes from clarity and, maybe most of all, consistency over time. The whole practice is just an exercise in patience.
So if Kenna taught us that photography is an act of patience, what familiar, ordinary subject near you, a lamppost, a solitary fence line, a single tree could you commit to returning to repeatedly, waiting for the one condition, that one moment of mist or that long shadow that finally reveals its essential, quiet nature? Go find the stillness.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.